not me who's improving me. It's me trusting him to improve me.
Mm.
Like he designed my life. I'm figuring that out along the way. Um, and as a result, you're looking for him in all things. If I'm talking to you, I'm looking for him there. I mean, it just changes the worldview. You know, when it's not me, it's him, and where is he at? Where, you know, everywhere you look.
All righty, everybody. Welcome back to the Champion Life Podcast. I'm your host, Curt Tucker. Today, I'm excited because I got one of my good friends on here to share his journey with you guys. If you have ever struggled with addiction, I want to let you know right now, and you could have been addicted to a lot of different things, but one of the things that we're going to encourage you today to be addicted to is addicted to life. And I got my good friend, Airek, with me today to share. Guys, he's going to drop some bombs on you today. I'm going to encourage you, stay with us. So Airek, welcome to the show, brother. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks a lot, Curt, for having me.
Man, it is an honor. It is an honor. Well, Airek, I tell you what, it's cool that we've gotten to this place, to this space today to talk to people out there, because in this show, The Champion Life, it's all about helping people, Airek, do three things: create a life of abundance, of freedom, and victory, where they're winning in every single area of their life, right? And so I know you, man, you have an incredible journey. You have an incredible story of literally being, and I'm not going to give the details. I'll let you tell the story, but it's just an incredible story of breakthrough, of triumph. It's been an honor to be able to get a chance to coach you over months and help you get to this point where now you have a book, literally coming out, getting ready to launch. You're going to be speaking so many different things. And I want to talk about that. But first, Airek, let's rewind the tape a little bit. Let's go back to maybe the early years, because sometimes when we go through struggles as a young adult, as an adult, and things of that nature, many times things start early on. Would you agree? Like, it's like, how did we even get here? So tell us a little bit, just real quick, about where you're from, man. Where'd you grow up at? And if you had to look back early in life, where do you think some of those struggles began in your life that you had to overcome later on in life?
Yeah, so I'm 40 years old, so I grew up in Lancaster, Ohio, and so I was like in the 80s and the 90s. And I got involved in like aggressive inline skating, so I always liked getting my heart rate going. I was cliff jumping, like adrenaline. People knew me for being like a crazy adrenaline junkie. I was also really involved in church. I grew up a Jehovah's Witness, and so I didn't touch any type of drugs or alcohol. People didn't lie there. I mean, I was sheltered. I was sheltered a lot. And as I grew up and I started experiencing more of life, particularly when I became a teenager and started dabbling in friendships, and really just, I think that where it all started was a desire to be accepted. I wanted to be accepted by people. When I was a Jehovah's Witness, I only hung out with Jehovah's Witnesses, and the phrase was separated ourselves from the world, which means you did not hang out with anyone that was not a Jehovah's Witness, especially people that were worldly, which would be involved in the worldly and secular activities. So when I started going to football and getting and realizing I'm really good at these sports, I started, hanging out with more and more worldly people, but I never felt accepted. And I think that is one of the major hiccups or hurdles or challenges that any young person has to overcome, is a desire to be accepted.
I was just talking about that exact subject with my 18-year-old daughter this morning, because one of the things that I believe that she has, I know that I have it, I believe that many people have, is they want to be accepted. They want to be liked, right? Like
Mhm.
you sometimes you don't want to speak up, because you know that it might create, some type of friction in a relationship. So sometimes it's easier to just say nothing, whether it's in a relationship, in a marriage, in a business, with a friendship, because you don't want to, not be accepted. You don't want to be, whatever. So for you, how did you navigate away? Because obviously, I know now you're a Christian. I know now you have Jesus in your life. Like what led you to having Christ in your life, and how has your faith, been, such a significant impact in your life to who you are today? Like, how did you make that transition from, Jehovah Witness to Jesus, if you will?
Yeah, well, Jehovah's Witnesses, we always considered ourselves Christians because we still followed Jesus.
Sure.
Don't believe in the Trinity, but they were very knowledge based. You go into church or the meetings, as they called them, and I mean, you would hear the Bibles flickering and scriptures, and everyone had their Bibles open and going from book to chapter to verse throughout the whole entire meeting 3 times a week. Now, when I got away from that and that quest to be accepted, part of that was the drug use and partying. All the cool people went to the parties, man, and I wanted to be the coolest. Like I wanted people to accept me, so I would, get my heart racing. I would get crazy, and I would jump off patios and just do all the nuttiest things, which didn't exactly bring connection, but it got attention. So
Yes.
I was increasing the attention, but I was depleting my connection with friends and the connection that I had with God. After a while, to be honest, when I never really fell away from Jesus. I never really fell away from God. Even shooting up heroin, I had prayer journals. I had these journals, and I'd write. And I clearly remember being in the basement of one of the people I lived with. Her name was Kat, and I was nodding off because I was really high on heroin. And so I'm sitting there writing out my prayers. And I remember waking up and seeing my pen mark had slid all the way across the paper. And then I wrote, it's like, look at me, God. Look at me right now. I just nodded out. And my pen just went all the way across the paper, but this isn't going to stop me from talking to you. And
Mm.
so even during the times of destitute, I never stopped chasing God. As a matter of fact, when I was in jail, the only book I wanted to read was the Bible. So it was almost a time where I had 24 hours a day, minus the time I had to sleep, that I was reading the Bible all the time. I just could not get away from drugs. I could not get away from the destructive side of addiction.
Mm.
Now, as I got clean and I was ready to move on from that chapter of my life, it was a battle. And that's where Be Addicted to Life comes from. B is and A, so be addicted, and then two, the number two, and then L for life. So battle, BA2L. That's what it takes. You have to choose your heart, like people say, and you have to work really hard against the enemy that wants to distract you from the valuable things in life with pleasure and these other things. So when I got clean,
Let's
I took a
real quick,
step into the church.
real quick before you move on from that, because man, that's a lot to unpack right
Yeah.
there. I mean, think about, if you're listening to this right now and you're struggling with something. I like to say that just because you become a Christian and maybe you accept Jesus as Lord and Savior, and that's what we call salvation, right? But then comes the process of sanctification, right?
Right.
Becoming more like Him.
Yes.
Um, as I was saying, to somebody yesterday, like it took me almost 4 years, 4.5 years from when I said yes to Jesus to finally being able to quit smoking pot. For me,
Right.
that was what I did. And sometimes,
Mhm.
I think we kind of like we debate, well, what drug is more toxic, what is more, you become more dependent upon. And I'm like, to me, it really doesn't matter. That's not what it's about. It's anything that the enemy can use to distract you, to divide you,
Yes.
to to steal, kill, and destroy, he'll use it. So for me, it was weed. For you, like you said, I'm using heroin. But I was still longing for a relationship. I was still leading a men's fitness ministry at my church with 30 guys. I had started a fitness business named Faith Driven Fitness, where I'm training people and I'm praying with people. But yet at night, I'm going home and I'm like, I got to smoke this joint. Like, I got to have it. Because why? I had been lied to. I had been deceived. That the enemy had gotten me to believe that I couldn't live without that. And one thing I love to say is, if you believe the lie, you empower the liar, and he'll keep feeding them to you, right? So for you, Airek, like, what was the final straw on because you had Jesus this whole time. You're praying, you're journaling, like what was the thing that like finally happened that you were just like boom, and you were able to be like, this is it, and you were able to get clean? Take us through that real quick.
Actually, there's two keys: honesty and curiosity. So I believe that there's two keys to growth, and the first one is honesty. Honesty is like, you have to be honest with yourself. Like, in the jail world, you get tattoos of family, you get your kids tattooed on you, get faith on this arm, you know only God can judge me, on this arm. And it's like the things that you want to be true, you tattoo on your body, so you believe people will believe them. But when you look in the mirror, you don't believe them yourself. You're sitting there spending time in jail, and you're not with your kids, so family can't be too important to you. But when you are honest with yourself and you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, family is important to me and I'm not living that out, that's when you can begin to grow. And then curiosity is looking into the future. It's being curious of who you can become. It's being curious of how much you can change, and genuinely wondering about your true potential in life, because we just get this one shot, right? We get one shot, and we are so blessed to have it. Everything had to happen exactly the way it happened for us to even have this experience. For thousands of years, it had to happen that way for us to be here. And then not to be grateful for that, and then curious on how much we can really impact the world. Those are the two keys: honesty and curiosity.
So you got honest with yourself. You realize, hey, I've got a problem. I realize life is way better without these drugs in my life. And now all of a sudden you're able to get those. So how long have you now been clean from the drug usage, Airek?
Yeah, so December 28th, 2013 is when I quit using any type of hard drugs. I still drank and stuff, but moderation is huge. And connection to Jesus is huge, and connection with others. I believe that spirituality and our spiritual wellness is directly tied to three connections: connection to God, connection to others, and connection to ourselves. And if those three, or any of those three, are losing connection by the activities that we engage in, whether it's substances or not, then we need to question those activities on if there's something that is beneficial, if they're good.
Yeah. So when you talked about curiosity, about, there's this version of ourselves that is possible, right? I talk a lot about, what's the next level that you can reach? What's the next best version? Like every single year, vehicles come out and they have the latest technology. They're constantly improving. If you look at a 2025 that's coming out right now versus a 2005, it's going to be just a completely different vehicle. So for you, Airek, how we really came to be building our relationship to this point, because we had known each other through passing. Obviously I owned Anytime Fitness franchises. You did some training for years. You're huge into fitness. I know that's a huge part of, by the way, you're staying sober, right? You being your very best, right? Is your fitness and your working out and all that kind of stuff. But when we first met, as far as to take our relationship to the next level, you had reached out because you were in this season of life where you were pursuing things. There's, hey, I'm doing good, in my sales position, you're fit, but you were searching. And you
Right.
thought maybe that you were searching for real estate stuff, but the reality was, after we began to start kind of spending some time together, and we got clarity on what it was that really you felt God was calling you to do, you said, hey, listen, I really want to write a book. I really want to speak more. I really want to take this battle, this being addicted to life concept, and let people know that addiction can be good as long as it's the right addiction, and how our perspective on life is. So real quick, just, what has that looked like for you over the last 4, 5, 6 months? Because this has been a journey for you. I mean, 10 years of being, off of the hard drugs, and a lot of wins, but then some losses, some peaks and some valleys. But now here you are at 40, coming into your prime, man, coming into a season of life where God's calling you to rise up and go next level and literally be the champion that he created you to be. So over the last 3 or 4 months, like, take us through what that's looked like, because now you got a new book that's literally getting ready to launch on Amazon, and we'll make sure that we put in the notes where people can get that book. But what was it about that? Where was the inspiration from that made you decide, hey, listen, I'm going to go all in on this. I'm going to make an investment. I'm going to really take the time necessary, because it's no easy feat to do what you've done, right? I know it. I've went through it. I remember writing at 5 o'clock in the morning, because that was the only time I could figure out how to build time in to write the book, when you got businesses and kids and all that stuff. So what's the inspiration behind the book? And tell us a little bit about that, and just being addicted to life, and what that means to you, and how you hope to help other people through that.
Yeah. So in my book, I have an excerpt from the story of Samson. Now, Samson kind of it's like a trilogy. And the first saga of Samson has him, he's meeting this new girlfriend. It's a Philistine, and he ends up fighting this lion. Lion comes out of nowhere, tries to eat him. Spirit of God comes over Samson, kills the lion, and then he ends up saying later that, hey, mom, hey, dad, I want to marry this girl. And when he walks back to go marry the girl, he hears the sound of buzzing, and that buzzing is these bees that are over top of that lion. So he goes back to the lion and he digs the honey out, and then he shares that honey with the important people to him, so like his family. And also, right after that, not only in the time that he fought that adversity, that lion, he displayed strength. After that, he displayed his intelligence by, the riddle that's famous out of, he goes, what's stronger than a lion? What's sweeter than honey? Out of the eater, something to eat, out of the strong, something sweet. So, these two things were very important. Now, where does that come into being addicted to life? Well, I don't believe God makes mistakes. I 100% believe that our life is designed specifically for our improvement, and improvement is understood as trying to get closer and closer to God, who he created us to be. And that is the ultimate, the sanctification we talked about. But to do that, we cannot do that without returning to our adversity. The lion is like adversity in our life. We all have adversities. So my whole story, my whole childhood, all my drug use, all these incredible stories that would cause me to question reality. Why do I remember them? Why did I go through this? I had to revisit those stories. And as I revisited those stories, I was digging the honey out. Like, that's why we go through things in life. If we just bag up our adversity that we made it through and never revisit it, we will never get the honey. And Proverbs says honey is wisdom to us. So we have to get the wisdom out of the adversity in our life. So that was the beginning of my book. I was just reliving my memories. My mom said, hey, Airek, you should start writing. After she kept hearing me tell her these stories, you should start writing. So I did. And then at the end of each time I wrote, I said, well, what did God teach me from this? Why did God have me go through this? What am I supposed to learn? And I'd have a lesson. So my book is an accumulation of these lessons that I learned through my drug use, and then how they were applied in my life afterwards. So like some of the beliefs that we have, man, our belief is and Jesus talks about it. You're healed by your faith, and your faith is your belief in Jesus, the one who can heal you. It is our belief that can completely transform our life, and it can transform it for the good or for the bad. You can create here right now. You can co-create your heaven with God and help build the kingdom of God as we know it with him. Or we can try to do it without him. And for most of us, we'll just be creating hell. So that's what it is to be addicted to life. It's learning from our mistakes, having the courage to have more of those moments and keep learning from it and grow closer to God and be able to ultimately take part in building that kingdom. And we're going to love it. Like we can't not love it. God doesn't want us to. He is love. So why would he help us create something that we don't love?
That's so good. You know, it makes me think of the saying, and my good friend Nate Carr, he was a three-time national champion, an Olympian bronze medalist. He would always say to me, Curt, listen, it's not about what you go through, it's what you grow through.
Yeah.
And each an opportunity, just like, you know, when we step into the gym, we know we're there, especially for us men who want to be fit. There's just something about when you can take your shirt off and you can look in the mirror and you can say, I like what I see. But that muscle didn't get developed without putting in the work, right? You know, you had to put a muscle, what I like to call time under tension, for that muscle to strip, break down, and then repair and get back stronger, right? And you've just used these things that have went through in your life to not only make you stronger, but to now put it into a book to be able to almost be a roadmap, right? Of like, hey, here's how to get through these things, right? You know, here's, because we all have our own problems, right? You know, but when we view problems as opportunities to grow, it's a totally different belief system. It's almost like now you're excited for the problems, for the opportunities. We no longer have a victim mentality, but now it's like, oh man, this is okay, here we go. I'm going to step up and I'm going to go next level, right? Which is cool.
Yeah.
Well, Airek, where can people find you at? I want to make sure that we lock in on that real quick. What's the best way to find you? And then where can they get your book that just came out?
So the best place to find me is on Facebook. I spell my name Airek, so it pulls up really easy.
Okay.
That's the best way to get a hold of me. Facebook Messenger. I post on there a lot. And then if you're getting my book, buy it for a friend. If you know someone that has struggled with addiction, or a family member that struggles with addiction, or even if you're just interested in just having a coffee table style book, because there's tons of pictures. You don't have to read it from beginning to end. I mean, I really liked making it. You know, I had a lot of no's that said, no, this isn't the book we want. And I finally found the one person that understood it. And she was like, this is great. Anyway, on Amazon. So you just look for Be Addicted to Life, type that in, Be Addicted to Life.
And we'll make sure we put it in the show notes. We'll make sure we put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
The link, because it is Airek and then last name Dilley, right? Dilley. So Airek, I got two final questions for you today, man. Okay. First one is, what has been the greatest life lesson that you have learned in your lifetime that you believe has helped you create the man that we're sitting here with today?
It's got to be my belief that everything in life is designed for improvement. That belief right there has transformed, like you're saying, the victim mentality. You know, life doesn't happen to me, it happens for me. And then when I look at other people as well, you know, I believe the same thing for them. So it's like once you understand how important a belief is, and you believe this is universal, it's not just true for you, this is true for everyone. They just haven't realized it yet. All of a sudden, you are that role in their life. Like now, every interaction that you have with others is important. That is by far the most important life lesson I've learned. What was the second one? Second question?
Well, no, that was really it. Just
okay.
So what I hear you saying is just life's about improvement. It's about each and every opportunity. How do you grow from it? And I also know, you know, it's
more than that, Curt. It's knowing that it isn't me who is, and I had to grow through that. It's not me who's improving me. It's me trusting him to improve me. Like he designed my life. I'm figuring that out along the way. And as a result, you're looking for him in all things. If I'm talking to you, I'm looking for him there. I mean, it just changes the worldview. You know, when it's not me, it's him, and where is he at? Where, you know, everywhere you look.
That's powerful, man. That's powerful. You've made quite an investment in your journey of not just investing, in per se a coach to help you, when it comes to writing a book or to, just working through some things. You definitely made that investment. You've invested money, but you've also invested a lot of time. I know you're a deep thinker. I know you like to process through things. You like to write things. You kind of said your book was written really over just a process of writing as you've experienced these life lessons.
Yes.
What would you say to the person who's maybe listening to this right now and they're struggling? Like they are somewhat in a season of where you were, going through these certain things. What would be what would you share with that person that maybe is just like ready to give up? Like they're just like, I just don't really know what to do from here. If that was you looking at self today, you were still there like some of these people are, because we know it. Sometimes we're on a peak and it's like, hey, but there's still another level we're trying to get to. And sometimes we're in a valley where it's like, hey, at least I got nowhere to go from but up. But what would you speak to that person right now that's listening to this podcast?
I mean, it's tough. Like, you know, I've met a lot of people that don't have the blessings of like a family that's there for you. Um, I had my sister and my mom and someone that was sober that I could always talk to, that I knew loved me and cared about. And there's some people that just I know they don't have that, and they try to find that in friends and relationships. And if you look for those relationships in the wrong places, if that's you, then you'd have, I mean, reach out to me, number one, because I mean, I get that. And number two, there's a brother that sticks closer than any other, and you can always talk to Jesus. And sometimes he works out the most weird ways, like a random person coming by just to offer you a cigarette that doesn't smoke. You just carry cigarettes just so you can talk about Jesus. There's someone else that's out there that sticks closer to a brother than a brother. I mean, Jesus, if you pray, you talk to him, and he'll manifest in ways that you could have never thought of. And like I had a guy come by who doesn't smoke cigarettes. He's the only person. I couldn't see anyone else. It was like a ghost town. For some reason, he had some cigarettes and asked if I believed in Jesus. Then he died for my sins, and said yeah. And he just used cigarettes to start the conversation. He didn't even smoke. And he's there. So
Wow, that's so powerful, man. So, well, Airek, last question for you, man. The Champion Life, that's the name of the podcast.
yeah.
Once again, you have definitely created a story from, everything that you've been through to now a life where you're winning in multiple areas, man. So for you, when people grab your book and they're reading it, okay, they're getting ready to read it. If there was one word of encouragement before they start to read your book or they read my book, maybe because maybe this is the first time they've ever interacted with me or with you, and they're getting ready to dig into this book, from you knowing me and me knowing you, in 30 seconds, what would your hope be for that person as they get ready to dig in and read Being Addicted to Life by Airek Dilley?
You are the hero of your own story, and no one wants to read a book that is mundane and boring. And if you're anything like my story of addiction, which isn't nearly as incredible as a lot of other people's, your story is going to be magnificent once it's over. But be curious about where you'll be when you write that story and when you share it, because I want to read that. People want to see that. That's dramatic. There's a lot of action, and why would you want a life anything different? So just because you might not be enjoying it in the moment when you look back on it, I don't think when everything is ironed out that you'll regret it, because you'll love who you are then.
Man, that's powerful. You are the hero of your own story. You know, we have the opportunity every single day to, in this movie of life, we're not a second tier character. We're not, just a walker by who gets a little blip of, a half a second on camera. It's like we are the hero. We are the main character. And the really cool thing is when we have the ability to vision, it's one of my favorite things that I get to do with the men that I coach, is to help them create a vision for their life that inspires them, that where they want to become more, right? Because that vision to me is the champion life. It's the life that God has for us. It's like, hey, he doesn't want us to be struggling. He doesn't want us to live in lack. He doesn't want us to be stressed out and living in fear and worry and doubt. Those are things we're going to go through, but once again, we're going to grow through. But I truly believe in this life of abundance and freedom and victory. So I love that. You are the hero of your story. This is awesome, man. This has been great. I tell you what, I'm super excited for what, God is going to do. He's already doing it, and the opportunity. And I want to let the people know out there, if you're looking for somebody, especially if you've struggled with addiction, if you've struggled with some of the things that Airek has talked about, I want to encourage you, to reach out. I want to encourage you to grab a copy of his book off of Amazon. And I tell you what, man, when you talk about championing, that's what this is all about, right? I always say there's two definitions of champion. One is to, win, right? We know that in sports, it's to win, it's to rise to the top, it's to defeat all other rivals in competition. But then also a champion is a defender of purpose, somebody who will fight on behalf of someone else. And man, I'm grateful, I'm thankful that I've had the opportunity to champion you in this process of writing this book, getting it out, and you getting out there and telling your story and allowing you to speak life into a lot of different people and helping them overcome addiction and ultimately learning how to become addicted to life, man. So thank you so much for joining with us today. It's been awesome, Airek, having you, brother. And I know you're going to do big things, man. So
thanks, Curt.
Well, that's it. Thank you so much for joining into this episode. What an incredible story. I hope you've gained hope. I hope you have been inspired by this story, and I hope that you'll make a decision today to choose to have the perspective of life that, hey, man, I've got an opportunity to grow and to become my very best and to ultimately become addicted to life. We'll see you on the next episode. Love y'all. Peace out.